Welcome to Faith into Action podcast. Thanks for joining us today as we navigate faith in our journey with our biblical worldview in today's culture. If you enjoy our podcast, please be sure to like the video, leave comments, subscribe to our channel, and share with your friends. We are available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search Faith into Action podcast. Now let's join Eric and Jerry in their discussion for this week.
All right, welcome back. Another week in the book. If you were looking for the episode last week on Apple or Spotify, I did not get it uploaded. So you're watching this now or listening in, you're probably getting like two back to back. So hopefully get them both done at the beginning of this week. It's a pretty busy week. In my household, it's birthday season, and I know it kind of is in your household too. So, my youngest birthday tomorrow, and mine's the next day, and then my sister's is at the end of this week. So it's like a big birthday season. I guess there was a time of year for this family to be born.
Nice plea too for everybody to wish you happy birthday the day after today. And the reality is, they'll probably be watching this after the birthday. And make it believe at the bottom of my
Yeah, something like that. I always kind of joke with my wife. After my youngest was born, turned 38 the day after. Told her that was my last birthday because from here on out, it's really my birthday has been insignificant. It's all about her. So I don't really have an she's born, so I'm like, I just kind of stuck at 38, and I'm just gonna hang there for a while.
So February birthdays.
A lot of February birthdays.
My son's is Valentine's.
Yep.
My mom's is the 20th. I was like doing the math. Like my birthday's in November 20th, by the way. So 40 weeks, 10 months. Like happy season. The love holiday. I'm trying to think. 10 months would be like April. So what is it doing in April?
Right in the hot.
So I just stuck inside. Of course, we're consistent.
Yeah. Like I said, I was a product of a full consumption, but I was also gonna pretty much go out on a limb and say I was not, because I was born less than a year after my sister was. Yeah, we're 4 days apart in our birthday. So for 4 days every year, we are the same age. So yeah, so I'll go out on a limb and say mine wasn't planned. All right, we'll get into the conversation today, and we really dig in. I want to lead us off in prayer. You okay with me leading us?
Absolutely.
Father God, we praise you for all the great things you do in the world and our lives and everything that you do. We praise you for who you are. We thank you for this opportunity that we are in a country and a place where we can freely speak about you and have open conversation. And we ask that you bless the conversation today and lead the conversation. Use us as a vessel for your words. Just let what we speak be your words. And in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, last week, I know we said we were going to talk about Yahweh, but I got one more thing to drop in on John. So we talked about John. I've been watching about John for a month. We talked about different stories, jumped around it a little bit. But something kind of hit me this weekend. It goes back to a sermon I heard probably 6 or 8 months ago, and I can't remember who it was, but I'm pretty sure it was Robert Morris. And he was just kind of dropping in a little bit of humor about the book of John. Nothing, heretical or anything, just trying to drop in a little bit of humor. And he was talking about how John refers to himself as the disciple that Jesus loved,
Right.
and the beloved disciple. So, and he kind of laughed and he kind of being a little jovial about it. But it kind of hit me this week because we talked so much about the book of John the last month. And I think I know why he says that. And this is just my take, okay? There's probably no there's probably theology on it, but it's probably this theology. But my take is, I think John understood personality characteristic of love from Jesus from a different level than the other disciples. And I think that comes out in his book, because the book of John is so much about the ministry life of Jesus and so much about his interactions with people. Every writer's going to pick up on different things and write different things. And that's why when you look at the four gospels, there's four different perspectives.
And you need to read all. You need to read all of it, the full picture. To your
Definitely. Definitely. And I just think that the reason he says that he's the disciple of Jesus dearly loved, it's not that he's saying that he's not meaning that Jesus loved him more than the other disciples. He just understood how Jesus loved him, and he knew that. My take.
I would agree. In kind of in my circles, and maybe it's others. The Book of John's kind of referred to again to your point earlier, different perspectives. That's why all the Gospels are important. None of them contradict each other. You had different people telling different stories, so different things are in, different things are out. They all complement each other in the total person and the humanity. I think I've often heard John specifically refer to the Book of Love. For instance, it's one of the reasons we talked about maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Like that's a great book to start at.
Yeah.
It's not the only book to start at, because it gets you in that nature, in that part of the humanity of Jesus. And I'll also say, and you leaned on it too. You and I both shared stories out of the Bible that are important and meaning to us. I fully believe, and once again, the Bible itself is often referred to as a living book.
Oh,
A living, breathing book. So anybody out there, our perspective, my perspective on Peter Exchange and your perspective on Woman at the Well, even though we both share massive commonalities and how we hear and perceive that, it's living. It is absolutely open to impact every individual on its own. However, that's how it's impacted us. And I say that, man, can that impact you differently? As long as you're not leaving the story of Woman at the Well that allows you to go ahead, go further in your, that's not what
right.
that's and but what you drew from that and what I drew from the Peter, I call it the Peter exchange, the love exchange, is just, once again, I say that my second, third, fourth generation of reading, that's how it impacted me. It didn't impact me that way the first time, or maybe probably even the second or third. But, and that's kind of why we're pushing, and those are our perspectives, and if that opens you up to receive God speaking to you in a living way, and to draw you closer to Jesus, you don't have to have the same feeling. Once again, there's a context, sin no more and love and this and that. If you come out with that, great. But if you come out with something different, but that springboards your faith and your deep dive into who Jesus was, his life, 100% the Messiah kind of belief, I'm all for it. So I'm not sharing these stories, and I don't think you are either, as a single linear path
Oh, definitely.
to how to perceive that story. Hopefully, and encouraging, and it does open you up in some light. I'm just saying there's room there. It can speak to you so many different ways. I think as long as we get the core message of who Jesus was, the sin and how to love, you know what I mean? Like the initial baseline behavior analysis change kind of thing out of it. It's open for everybody to receive.
You're talking about that, and I think about like the story of Thomas after the resurrection. That where he was dubbed Doubting Thomas. Like my whole life, I basically what I got out of that is Thomas didn't believe until he was just shown without a doubt. That's what I got out of it. But later on, I got more out of it of just how the scars that Thomas had from his doubt, like he grew past that. And then you look at what he did later on, like he didn't live in the where he basically said, I don't believe you, or I don't believe Jesus is risen, or that's what he said until Jesus showed him his hands. He could have lived in that and kind of like wallowed in that regret, but he grew past those scars. And then he was like the disciple that first went into Asia. So he went out spreading the message. And so, it's like every time I read different stories, I get something different out of it. It just grows for me. So,
Absolutely. Well, and once again, Jesus never abandons you should you want to draw him. It's never like Jesus pushes away. See, push away from him. You know, I wish there was a lot more on Thomas. I think that would have been a cool cat because I think we all have that in our life. So I know I've said 1,000 times, Jesus, I'm not going to do this until you, or you prove yours.
yep,
And
all have those moments.
and the more mature I get, the more I realize how much proof physical, historical, and not just hypothetical. People want to wrap it up in this hypothetical biblical truth, but like tangible proof. You know? Sometimes we get in our own way.
We definitely did. And I think like one of the cool things about Thomas, and I want to short
So I just get into Yahweh, and I know it's probably a long
conversation, but like one of the cool things I think about Thomas is because he gets so much flack, basically, but he is the first one to say, "My Lord and my God." He saw that Jesus was the same as God. He is God in human form. He was the one to kind of connect that. Everybody else was like, "Oh, you are the Messiah." There was moments of that, like you are the Messiah, but they did never connected that Jesus is one and the same as God, just in human form. And Thomas was the one to do that, despite all the slack he gets.
That's your perfect segue, because if we're talking about the name or the names,
Right?
Lord and God are specifically different in terms of cultural reference of that day. And I'll say one thing, and I hope this, I didn't talk to you about this ahead of time, but I saw a little short. I love shorts because they're to the point.
Me too.
But they're talking about, again, word, talking about contextual, cultural meaning. It's like, remember, Bible written, but it was written to them. So sometimes we have to where they were at on that deeper, right? That multiple times get those more mature meaning out of it. Remember, he's these things were written in that time period too.
1,000 years ago.
We still pull. There's nothing diluted from that, but I'm saying sometimes we have to reach past our self and go kind of back to where they were at to get that.
And you get
that full script.
that context.
Yes.
Definitely. So we said we're going to jump into Yahweh, and I know you have been in a Genesis study, and so that's where we start getting into some of those names, those old ancient Hebrew names, and Yahweh is, if there's a name that's probably like culturally bad, I guess, right now, out of the Bible, it would be the name Yahweh. You see it a lot, like so much more than I ever saw it growing up, or I ever heard it growing up. And you may be different, but I grew up in a Baptist church, and nothing against Baptist at all. But we did not discuss that. We didn't discuss the names of God. And so, never got into it. Never really picked up on the name Yahweh until probably the last 2 or 3 years. And you start
Mhm.
seeing that name Yahweh just it's around a lot more. And, I have a hat that says Yahweh. And, you people have a lot more of that attire they're wearing, and they just refer to the name Yahweh so much more openly. So I think it would be a great discussion today.
I do too. I'm with you. I was 47, probably. It was in my 30s before I ever heard that Elohim or, you know,
Adonai.
Adonai, and there's a El Shaddai, and know, obviously Yahweh, but Yahweh Jireh and all that stuff. I'm like, who are you talking?
Right.
But I love it because that identifies, even though we believe as Christians that Yahweh is the single and only God. Capital. We're not Romans. We don't have a God for every season and every reign and so forth and so
We're
on.
we're monotheist.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
not polytheist.
There we go. See, um, we're, I love getting back to that. We can say that, and somebody please comment. I don't know of any other religion that calls their God Yahweh, and so we can even muddle into other. If I said, or some of my friends said God, and I might know that there's some different cultural backgrounds, maybe beliefs. It's not the same God I'm talking. I mean, judge. I just don't want to judge what God does or make the decision, but I say Yahweh, there to me, there's 100%. I'm talking about Yahweh,
Right.
the only God I believe that exists. Rather than, I even think sometimes in our culture, even in political, we say God is a cumulative. All I'm saying is when we say Yahweh, that's to me a single hand points exactly to the God, not just a God for interpretation.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not saying if you do, there's no judgment. I love the more I mature getting that pinpointed to precise language, right?
The specificity of it. Yeah.
Come
Yeah.
on, let's get into it. Yeah.
All right. So I'll let you kind of talk because I know you. Well, I guess I can take off, but I'm sure I want to hear what you got as you want to spin because there's a video I want to show, and then I know how I'm going to get once we show this video. I'm going to rabbit hole.
Yep.
And so I don't want to rabbit hole off what you're bringing to the
I like
table.
rabbit hole. Well, I'll start off with a couple of names because we are in Genesis. We're in my group's in chapter 3, so we've been introduced already to a couple of names, or how God is referred to. Um, and those of you, probably if you started reading your Bible here, you should still be in Genesis. Probably, guessing. We're introduced to uh, Elohim, which by my references, kind of, how they summarize it's God creator, mighty and strong. And again, you see that in Genesis 17:7, Jeremiah 31:33, the plural form of Elohim, Elohim, or the plural. So,
Kind of bringing in the Trinity into that name
mhm.
because and if you're talking about creator, I mean, we're really referring to Genesis 1, 2. And
And we hope as you dive deeper in it, you don't have to get it at first. I want you to get it multiple times through, but if you really deep dive into Genesis, you'll see the Trinity in its fullness in creation. God's the Son and the Spirit.
he said we created it in our image.
Mhm.
That our is a multiple.
That's a plural right there. Yeah. This into words. That word. And then we get more to specifically Yahweh. So, can't wait till y'all watch this video. I know it's coming up, but Yahweh is more singular. It's strictly speaking the only proper name of. Doesn't mean if you don't use it, you're being improper, but it's very point, the sharpest edge point, singular to God. And so it's very distinguished from all the other names that are spoken with affection and admiration and respect, but it's the biggest name,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You know? So, uh, Moses said, let's see, I'm looking at my notes.
Was it
Exodus
Exodus 3?
3:14. Yeah. I am who I am.
Yeah.
So, and it's all over Psalms, you know, different. Then, and then we have a handful of other names outside of Yahweh, butcher at this moment.
And I haven't done enough study on any of the other names. So
But once again, people have used this language in their use this language to express God, capital G God, in the moments that they're going. So, like the Lord it sanctifies, and I'm going to go ahead, Yahweh Makesh, or Yahweh Shalom, the Lord of our peace. So they recognize God singular and they refer to Him in the moment that where they're meeting,
that
right?
connection
That
point.
connection point. So they're affectionate, if I may, and that's a perspective. To me, it's like an adjective to who God was in that moment where they were seeking or meeting.
I think it's so
Does that make
perfect
sense?
because when you're talking about like the God of peace, it goes back to that name Yahweh. I am who I am. Whatever you can imagine Him to be, He's that.
Mhm.
Like beyond your imagination, that.
Like when you're praying for peace, praying to you, but you might pray for that Yahweh, you know, but that again, that just amplifies your connection in a way. Like when we say really big, oh, like
Right.
it's by definition, it's big, but we add really big to it to amplify that need to understand. Yes, I don't know. That's a weird thing. That's kind of,
But either way, you add that really to make it more specific and more understandable, I guess, in context. You know,
Mhm.
'cause either way, when you say Yahweh, if you're praying Yahweh, He's answering the Yahweh. You're adding in the, Shalom or Kaddish. You know, you're not still the monotheistic God that we pray to.
It's almost like amplifies our lack of this. You are the creator of everything. We almost like we're identifying individual weakness. To me, if I'm praying for Yahweh Shalom, and means, man, I'm at a deficit. Yahweh, because I know that you are that. Lord, I'm so,
Right.
or I'm so negative in peace right now. Yahweh Shalom, pour your peace into me. You know what I mean? Again, I think that's just ample connection. I don't think it removes, and I don't think we add anything to God by adding words. But again, He wants to talk to us, man. We forget that sometimes. And He wants us to listen to. We talk about that. It's important to be personal. Great rope. It's why we are like we are. You know, our in our deficit, He is strong. He is He is great. He is the curve. Every grade that we, you know, what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think once again personalizes and accelerates our. We get into. You're not there yet. No, we don't. Have, but I think that's why we see some personal we see these things. That's where those people,
Right.
you know,
I think that just the I am who I am. Me, I love how open it is. Just I am who I am is that can't define it.
yeah, we went through it. But that's the human nature. Well, he is the creator. Well, yes, he is the creator. He is like
Everything, everything, and
are you there?
right. But and I'm gonna throw in something that I don't mean this in any way heretical, okay? But in some way, like he leaves it open to us as a definition because if we want to define him as a God that can't do it or is incapable because we don't have the faith in him, then he is likely not to do it from our lack of faith. Not to say that he cannot do it because there's nothing that is beyond his control.
Mm.
But when he leaves it open like that, if you define him as a God that can't heal me or can't help me through addiction, don't have the faith in that, he is less likely to provide you the answers through faith because so much comes through.
Yeah. Sometimes that's what we have to hold on to. Because sometimes we step into those situations because we both in that addictive pattern lifestyle. Mm. That even before we ask it, and this is what's crazy. Maybe it's a little bit of our addictive personalities anyway. Well, we already have a finish line in mind. We already have the route set in our life before we ask. Like, God, all you got to do is make me quit drink. And I've had this dictator
Conversation.
just take desire for me to quit drinking and drugging, and I'm going to get back to church. But in my mind, I already had that path line before I even asked God to quit drinking. And I'm going to draw close. When God's plan was, He answered that, not in the way I thought. Where I was in church, as we talked about a week or two ago, smelling like whiskey. Pretty sure I've been high in church a couple of times. I'm not advocating.
Right.
I'm being transparent.
Right.
But got me into the building, addicted my personality to good people. I say it drew me in my natural inclination to grasp really good people or ever stop my behavior. Right. And so I didn't find myself out of that part of it was chemical, artificial chemical. So I was well and in church and established and in a small group and had friends that I could lean on because he knew when I tried to drop that and home, everything left me. I had that base that had my back. He knew I needed. He knew that I needed that. She established my ability before I even knew I needed.
Right.
And then started healing a way that changed. So, but when I asked for it, I already had the finish line mapped out. Already had the GPS location plugged in. The summarization of the route in mind. How this work?
Right.
I believe in transitional miracles on lights. I'm not demeaning when I say this, but the lights miracle. I've seen people 100%. I've been there. However, that wasn't my path. I rejected that, to be honest with you, getting jealous of. Why didn't you just, even when I saw his path work, man, why did he get to just wake up or in a prayer, just pray drugs anymore? That wasn't my path, but now I see the fuller, and the ending's not even there yet. I can't even see the end. I understand it. The people would affect me, people that I could affect, possibly, right? In the past. Had he given that to me, wouldn't even exist.
Right.
So anyway, I don't know how I got off on that. It's funny when we do pray that sometimes it's very weak. in a way, because we're not leaving anything open.
Right.
And trust and the sovereignty is a big one. Trusting that that God is sovereign. Everything is just and perfect
Right.
because it doesn't look that way. Because children sin. Some of our children pass away. We lose friends. You know what I mean? And I say that I'm personally not experienced. Dear friends I've lost. I hate to say it, multiple. It's tough to say. It's tough. But I know somebody out there is thinking we can't get into trusting the sovereignty, faith, and the sovereignty of God. There's no way we reconcile. And I'm saying I don't even know how you a loss of something, but I know how people are managing, and they couldn't do it without a strong faith in this, even though they can't see it, and it sure
Right.
doesn't feel good, you know. So tiptoe lightly and even my voice lowered a little. I don't want. I'm not experienced. Don't want to. Don't even want to think. We got to get to that point where when we ask, when we prayed, Jireh, Shalom, Kaddish, believe. If even if we don't believe that that our faith and belief pulls us, and sometimes if we have to overlay obedience, and though we don't have until all this stuff starts, and I'm confident, I'm confident.
Yeah. Sometimes it just takes a little longer
Yeah.
than we instinctively want because we have our human timeline that like, hey, I prayed for this and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and noon now and it ain't happened. Sometimes we have that. I think that's where the faith really comes in because you have to know that he did hear you and you have to trust with faith that he will answer your prayer whenever it's right for his kingdom.
You know, do you watch The Chosen? I don't know if we talked about.
You know, I watched episodes, but
Mhm.
me and my wife actually just started it kind of really from the beginning, kind of going through it the last couple of weeks, 5 or 6 episodes in.
Well, I try not to be spoiler alert. In this, I'm
Or
in,
what
I'm in
happens in the
season
story.
4. Yeah, in season 4, there's a large part of it on Thomas,
Oh, really?
about things that were not biblical. And I know a lot of people want to get sideways with that. And I started out getting that is nowhere in the Bible. This is nowhere, there's fine. I look at, and there's people out there know what I'm talking about, and maybe I felt the same way. The more I don't get so wrapped up into, not that it's not true, it's just nowhere to be found. Right? All the adaptations and additions. It's really opened me up. And I think of it so critical in that sense, just to be open and let the doubt and disbelief in my life come back to the surface, be suppressed, right? In a way. And so it's weird you start out with Thomas, but season 4 has a lot of hypothetical and theatrical additions that are not biblically based on Thomas himself and his relationship with Raina, I think, or Raya, maybe. But once again, if you're open for it and don't lay in that critical mass for a while, it's done wonders. It's okay. Like, that's tough. Seek hard answer. And he says you'll find. Knock and answer, seek and you'll find. And you won't do any of those if you don't do the first.
Right.
Right. So it started as a negative for me. And I've finished season 4 as a hard positive in terms of my openness to down and how I built that down. Basically, they're build how Peter had so much doubt, just additions that because we really don't.
Assumptions or
Yeah, it's
thoughts.
because we really don't understand how Thomas got or how he maintained that doubt after witnessing all other disciples. You know, but we saw even Peter deny.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to bring up. Yeah.
But but once we get, well, I'm saying this only to hear it myself, not because I'm good at it. Believing in that, having faith in this. For me, it culminates with sovereign, meaning that everything he knows all, he does all, everything he does is for a reason. And if I believe that, bad things are going to happen. Does that make sense? Bad things are going to, not intention, they're happening. That's how I know bad things have happened. But I see the sovereignty in it, how it, the rebound of,
I think where you may be going with that, and my thought is, the more I follow Jesus, and the more I've trusted God, and the more my faith has grown, the harder the devil's attack.
Mhm.
And that's where the bad stuff. God doesn't. I believe that God doesn't do bad to us. He may allow the devil to do some work, but nothing happens with or without his control. But I think that's when the devil attacks, or it has attacked me the hardest, is whenever I've stepped out in faith, doing things. I'm trying to grow. I've grown closer to God, turned more of my life over to God. I think that's when the devil attacks me the most. He's like, "Hey, hold up, get closer to Jesus, and I need to draw him back closer." And if I have bad stuff happen to him, he's going to be like, "Why would God let this happen?" The devil wants me to blame God for those, rather than having the sovereign trust that there is a purpose for God, kingdom for me at work.
well, and think about, I'm a math, atypical or A-minded kind of guy. So I pull a lot of things back to math, that kind of realm, A, B, C. Not necessarily great, but it is opening on things like this. So if the you can't enter hell any more or less. You can't earn hell more. Can't earn heaven. The more you seek Jesus, you can the more the devil to try to offset that to get you back into hell. Right? The devil just needs you. Just put it in percents term. 1%. You're in hell. You're in hell 1,000,000%. You're in hell. You don't get only 1,000,000% treatment.
Not a passing grade.
Not a
to get into
passing grade.
heaven.
You're, oh, you got the 6, 7 different moments. Yeah.
It's not like that. You're either in or you're not.
So just expect the more you seek God, the more the devil's going to seek. One thing. That's to your closer you, the more the devil ramps up because he just needs you. Just whatever that, if there was a line, he just needs you inside that line because he's got you 100%. So if you creeped over that line, even though your faith is small and it's weak and it's fresh, and it's new, but you believe in Jesus with all the heart that you possess at that time, the devil just needs that. And as you approach on a fuller, more mature life, the devil's going to attack you in ways for a heart, and ultimately I think that's the way it is. This isn't, you're going to have hardships. The moment you choose to follow a God creator that is, even though he created the original culture that is totally or is antithetical to today's culture, You're going to be an alien. He says we're an alien in our own land. We're going to continue to be.
Did you ever read the C.S. Lewis book, True Tape Letters?
No.
It's a great book. It's basically it's demons writing letters back and forth to each other. What it is, but I mean, it really goes with what you're saying. The devil attacking harder as their subject, as they call it, is that they're the one of them's assigned to is starting to go to church more or something like that. They change their tactics to try to attack more and stuff like that. So I mean, and I firmly believe that the devil uses demons and to attack us in different ways.
That's why you can go to church and be frustrated. You can go to church and be mad. Got pulled out of you and the friend.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't steal, kill, and destroy.
I want to bring up. So I want to show a video real quick on the name Yahweh because we have rabbit hole, and I want to go down one more rabbit hole before the episode's over, and we're already like 40 minutes in. So check out this video real quick on the pronunciation of Yahweh.
How do you pronounce YHWH when there is no vowels? To say it correctly, you don't use your tongue and you can't close your lips. So his name imitates the natural act of breathing as you inhale and exhale. So this is how YHWH sounds like. Can you imagine the first word you have ever spoken and the last word you will ever speak in this life, the last breath you will take on your deathbed will be the name of God.
All right. So I think it's amazing that, and when you look at the name Yahweh, it was YHWH. There are no vowels. They call it a tetragrammaton, I think.
Sure.
It's I think that's not what the term for it. But how do you pronounce it with no vowels? And the way he says that is just so beautiful. It your breath, which we had kind of talked about it like for a moment a couple weeks ago about that we wanted to get into the name Yahweh because it's in your DNA and there's bridges in there that spell out the spacing. I think it's 10, 6, 5, 6, and the spacing of bridges in the DNA that line up with the letters YHWH in the Hebrew alphabet. But when you get into that's how you pronounce the name Yahweh. Say his name. Your whole life. You get life when you say his name. And your life ends when you stop saying his name. So this is where I'm going to really rabbit hole. Right? I'm going to go off the ditch. I'm not even going out of the ditch here. I'm going to go out in the field. Okay. So we're saying his name in every breath. It's in the third commandment, which also the only commandment that says we will not go unpunished. The third commandment is thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. And if our breath, our life is saying his name, our entire life is saying his name. Everything we do in our life, if it's not for him, it's taking his name in vain. I know I just went like off the road and through a ditch here out into a field, left field here. But how much more does that, to me, how much more does that commandment mean whenever I think of it from the perspective of my entire life is saying his name? That's the only reason I have life is saying his name. So if I'm saying his name, breathe and live, and I'm not using the life for him, how much of that is taking the Lord's name in vain?
Man, I think you're really, really on to something. And I think just to clear course, I don't know what the Hebrew word, that was the best word probably to translate to our language. But I'll read the definition of vain, and I think this is beautiful. It says, so when you say in vain, it's like to do something without success or result. So we have, I think, to your point, this breath, this spirit of the one creator and establishing God of the universe in and out of our bodies, and we're doing it without success or without any result in our life. It seems empty. It seems anxious. It seems depressed. It seems angry, frustrated, dishonest, right? It
Yeah.
sounds anti-fruit of the spirit,
Yeah.
right? Dude, you killed it. I mean, I don't know if that's a big rabbit hole to understand for you. It just seems empty. It seems voidless of God.
Yeah, I think that is exactly what I was kind of going with that, because it seems like you're saying that it's one of God. It is a separation of God. So you're making this life by saying His name. You're using His name in vain to live separate from Him,
Mhm. Come
and
on.
that is at the end He will grant you that if that's what you want. That separation, but that is not what I want. I do not want that separation. I want my breath to be saying His name for eternity.
Our pastor at church, we now share pastor, thousands of other people.
Yeah.
Um,
More than I actually did. I'll say that. I did not know the church was that big.
well, he doesn't. I don't know. Some people give him flack on this, or it, it's not a it's not overtly big deal for me. But he doesn't define hell specifically, or he doesn't get into preaching hell specifically as some religions do, meaning the attributes, brimstone, what is it, lawlessness, and all that. Rather than for me, because how he preaches is it enough. He's like, hell is eternal separation from God, right? Whatever you want to make physicalness hell look like, um, it, and that's fine. I'm like, I don't want to be without God, no matter what it looks like, right? That
Right.
to live in the absence of God for eternity is whatever you want to define hell as that. And for me, it's enough to just whatever it would look like. It's not what you want to be. And that's where I kind of get that from. Like, we're living with that immediate connection in every breath we take. We're living without it. And we're not, I lost it. What did it say? Living without, my apology, without success or result of it in our life. We're living in hell if we're not in it. We're breathing it, yet we're not. The results are living without the success of it. It just seems same thought.
That's where you get into that continual struggle, the cyclical of being the same things, because you're trying to do it without God, and you're not doing it with God or that relationship.
Taking advantage.
Yeah. You have the creator of the universe literally saying, "Hey, I'll do whatever you need me to do." Trust.
Mhm. So, I mean, in your within this discussion, how do we once you realize you're almost connected in just your bodily every second, your physiology, I love you brought up the DNA thing. I've seen that too, and I think that's absolutely amazing. And now this breath, it's in 100% of our bodily function, DNA make. How do we? It's weird to say. How do we connect to that because we are that. but we still lose connection, right? We're not taking it. I hate to say advantage, advantage, but how do we
Tap into that.
tap into that? There you go. How do we tap into that? And because we're cultural, we're a culture of distraction. And that I think the devil, as cunning as it is, he's the master at distraction.
Right.
And I almost antithetical because Jesus is just saying, focus on me over here. Quit. Don't,
Right.
it's like, you bring your kid. I try to tell my kid, look at me when we talk. Because the men,
But
we can exchange exactly what we mean if we're not looking at each
Yeah.
other high. And that's what I believe. Bad parent or not.
I mean, no, I mean that's any kid. Unless they're looking at you, they're not thinking about the conversation. I mean, you're saying like the devil distracts you, and I'll tell you, for me personally, and you may be the same, and everybody may be the same, but for me personally, right here is where the devil lives. Right here, because
Mhm.
that's what keeps me from tapping into that relationship with Jesus and God a lot of times. And you talked about it. I think it was last week where you were reading about I think it was a text from your friend in scripture about like the relation, like leading the
Mhm.
relationship and like I'm so guilty of. I read because being a nerd kind of book guy and stuff like that. I want to know how.
Right.
Hey, pal. Well, I can read 1,000 books about Patrick Mahomes, and I could tell you everything about Patrick. Every pass he completed, everything about him, where he was born, where he went to school. I could tell you everything. But when I got done reading those 1,000 books about Patrick Mahomes, do I know Patrick Mahomes? Never met the guy. Don't know him. And that's where sometimes I struggle because this is where the devil attacks me because I'm like, well, if I knew this, then I'll be closer. Well, no, it just starts with the relationship.
What did Pastor say last night? He said something to the effect, I'm sorry, Pastor Corey, I'm butchering this, but he said, simply knowing, translatable 100% believing in God, just knowing who he was, without implying that faith, knowing who he was and believing who he was can be, we can, we
Yes.
can create a divide.
That's where that out versus actually know.
Exactly.
I don't know where you went to high school, but I know you. I know a lot about you. We're very good friends. We know more about some sports figures, about their lifestyles. When I was a kid, like Michael Jordan, when I was a kid, grew up reading books about him. I could tell you a lot of stuff about him, but I don't know him. And that's
Some of those things will really get right there. Some of these, not necessarily Michael Jordan, and I don't. Sometimes we can get to know people, and I
it, right? But I think that's where, like, for me, like, that's where the devil attacks me so much. Is right here in my brain because I want to, like, instinctively, I want to know about. And I think knowing about stuff is just a human nature. And you think if you know enough about something, then you know it. But that's not the way it works with God. Like, some of my closest moments with God when I really felt like that closest connection have been in my weakest moment when I didn't know how he could help me, but I knew he could. I didn't know about how he was going to do it. I knew he could, and I just leaned on it, and that's where the relationship was.
surrender.
Right? Surrender. It is.
Once again, we just come back to look 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 who Jesus presented. Everybody, but look who was most open in the people had no other channels, no other means, things to try in terms of being sick, healing, and all this stuff. These were the downtrodden, the weak, the needy. They're on their last ditch effort, and they just finally said, man, and you don't have to get. I was close. I don't know if I was all the way. Everybody's rock bottom
Right.
is different. It's not fair. Our rock bottoms look similar. They're not exactly the same. And I would never put that on anybody but our rock bottom didn't have to be as low as it was, whatever I vision that lowness being. Once again,
I'm going to put it in a paraphrase like this. He doesn't want us to get to that point.
no, he's available way before.
But we need to get to that point. We need it, not him. He doesn't want to see it, but we need, or I do, and I know you do, because we've had those kind of conversations. We've had to get to that point where we did surrender. And that's on us.
Right.
And it wasn't on him. It wasn't what he wanted. It wasn't what he drew up for our lives, or what he would, if he could have painted our lives, it would have been completely different. But me and you had to get to that point where we were just like, I don't know what else to do.
And you know why that's to our original discussion with Yahweh in the name? That's why identifying God as our Lord is important. That he is God, creator of all things, sovereign over all things, but he is also different meanings.
Right.
Different contextual meanings, specifically in that time. If you have I think of Lord as more of the ruler. That's more of what it seemed to be the Jews wanted, was Jesus to be the ruler, king,
An emperor.
And again, right? That's why you see so many things you hear Yahweh Lord. They're identifying both sides of it. Not only are you the master of the universe, you are the Lord over. And that's tough for men to buy because we don't like anything over. Or I don't want to put everybody like that, but I feel like it's
In general, I mean, yeah.
Man, the buck stops here, and that's way false. That's way false.
But
it's what I bought. That's what I bought and sold.
Wrap this so quickly, but we are already like pushing an hour. We're right up against it. So, I mean, this is exactly where I wanted the conversation to go today. I mean, we took some definitely detours along the way, but I really love getting your input on that name, Yahweh. So I don't know where we go from here next week, but I mean,
somebody comment. Somebody let it
give
lead
us
something you want.
That would be great. Comment or email us faithintoactionpodcast@gmail.com. Either way, get in contact with us. And
most of all, our numbers.
Yeah, I mean,
we're not speaking
text easily. No, Eric McMahon. Don't know me, next Eric, but throw something out there for us to discuss. And if we don't, me and Eric will talk this week.
I'll leave you with one thing before you sign us off, and that says, since you brought up Patrick Mahomes, you know why? You know why he chose the number 15? Did you hear about that? Because every time somebody touches him, he gets 15 yards.
All right, and that's a good segue. People with this episode waiting into the week. That's a good segue. Good conversation today. And if that's we appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you got something out of this message for your spiritual growth. If you enjoyed the message, be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video, and leave comments. Be sure to follow us on social media on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram by searching Faith into Action Podcast. You can now find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube. Be sure to follow and click the little bell for notifications so you will know when new episodes are available. Please send us feedback and inspire conversation with questions and input by emailing us at faithintoactionpodcast@gmail.com. We appreciate your support and input. We hope you have a great week. See you next week. God bless and be bold.